What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Vault Reviews, where we give you our take on albums you should check out and maybe some you should avoid. I'm one of your hosts, Zan Morning, and Brent is also a host. Brent, how's it going today?
Not too bad, man. Not too bad. A little frustrated earlier today. Good old electronics tend to piss me off. But other than that, I'm doing well.
I'm telling you, these cell phones are the ruin of society.
I'm telling you, man. Those kids.
Actually, more so, MP3s are the end of society. Bring back vinyl even more than it already is.
There you go.
All right, speaking of vinyl, today we're going to review an old school album, and that's the self-titled album by Europe, which came out in 1983. It's their debut album, and most people know Europe from The Final Countdown and maybe one or two other hits they saw videos for on MTV back in the day. But this album really kickstarted off for this band. Brent, did you even know this album existed, or were you one of those Final Countdown people also?
To be honest, I knew they had stuff before and after Final Countdown. They were a band I never really got into that much, but I'm actually really glad we reviewed this, and I think it's kind of sad that they've become, the Final Countdown band.
And you could say that for so many bands. I mean, Twisted Sister's
yeah.
Another great example.
Yep.
Quiet Riot is a great example.
Yep.
And there's other bands in different genres you could say that about. But let's get things started. This is early 80s metal, so it's not really the speed stuff. It's not really hair band. It's kind of just, your straightforward stuff, maybe like Iron Maiden, Saxon kind of stuff. Maybe not so much of the elements of new wave British heavy metal. Excellent emphasis on the vocals. The vocals were kind of, I guess, overpowering a little bit, but in a good way. I didn't think of that. So let's start there. What did you think of the vocals on this album?
Oh, the vocals were great. Honestly, it coming out in '83 and listening to the stuff that's come out afterwards, I think they were a little bit, ahead of their time on some of this stuff.
I agree.
I was actually really shocked by how much I enjoyed a lot of this album. There was some of it, whatever. But honestly, for a debut effort from a band in '83, I was actually pretty stoked. And the vocals were great. They were very well done, I thought.
Yeah, Joey Tempest was the lead singer, and excellent vocals, good range. He can hit those high notes, but not like Rob Halford high, just a good, clean singing, really. And for being metal, I think it complemented the music very well. And even if this album came out today, I think it would hold up pretty well. Do you think?
I thought so. I honestly, you hear a lot of stuff from the '80s and stuff, and you get a whole lot of, oh, that's cheesy, oh, that's awful, oh, I can't believe I listened to that.
Right. And
you don't get that with this album. I mean, you get some good, solid, music, I think. I was actually really impressed, because a lot of bands, a lot of them are a little harder and everything, but there's a lot of bands kind of coming out doing similar stuff now, at least, the past 10 years and everything. So I think, it's held up very well, I think.
And you said they were kind of ahead of their time for being an early 80s album release. I thought this album had very good production. It wasn't overproduced like what we saw a few years later with the hair bands. It was just crisp recording. You could hear the bass drum, you could hear the guitar, the vocals were over everything. You could hear everything. I thought it was perfect. So, any notes on the production on your end?
No, I absolutely agree with you. The only thing I thought of is, granted, you hear Europe, most people are going to be like, oh, 80s. But you could tell, you could tell it was produced in the 80s, but It was very crisp. Like you said, it wasn't overproduced. There, wasn't anything wrong with it. I thought it was just very clean. I thought it was what the music needed, to be honest with you.
Yep. And let's, the meat and potatoes of this album, really, for me, we've touched on the vocals, but the guitar work.
Yes.
Awesome riffs. Some of them weren't incredibly technical; they were just memorable. And then the solos. This is back in the day when you got to have solos in every song, which I miss nowadays on some bands. And I thought the guitar work was just amazing, not like virtuoso, but just amazing in that it sounded great. Like every song, there was something in there for any fan of guitar playing. What did you think?
I wrote down on my notes. The guitars are amazingly solid. Like you said, there was nothing really earth-shattering, like you said, virtuoso. You're not going to pick this up and, be like, what is it, like Yngwie Malmsteen or whatever.
Yeah.
it's not that, but I mean, it is very, very solid, well done, well played, and honestly, well written stuff. And I mean, honestly, you've got the song, and I'm gonna butcher it, but what is it like, Boyazant or whatever?
Yeah, the instrumental.
Yeah, I loved it. That was everything that I thought was great about 80s metal in that one song, like 2.5 minutes. I thought it was fantastic.
Yep, I totally agree. I have that down as one of my favorite songs. So
Yep.
let's jump into that. What were some of your favorite songs? We obviously mentioned that one, but what else?
That one was honestly my favorite, and I actually really enjoyed the first one. Was it In the Future to Come?
Yeah.
I didn't really care much for the kind of the more ballad-ish one, the Open Your Heart. That one didn't do much, but
Right.
Was it Seven Doors Hotel? I thought was really, really good. That had some really good rocking guitars. I thought that was great. And
Yep.
like I said, there's honestly so much. Every song is okay. I mean, there wasn't really just an awful song. Like I said, Open Your Heart's kind of like a ballad, and it's kind of whatever. But yeah, I mean, Seven Doors Hotel and The Future to Come and The Boy Is On, fantastic, amazing songs.
Yep, I had all that too, and then I also put Memories on there, which kind of had this cool vocal melody cadence thing.
Yep.
And then it was one of the only songs I realized that had a double bass. And keep in mind, this is early 80s. We didn't see a whole lot of double bass stuff coming in until, later. Like we had Iron Maiden, of course, and a little bit of Priest, but we didn't start seeing that till a lot of the thrash stuff, and then on into the 90s with death metal and stuff like that. But all those are great songs. So let's talk about the negatives. What negatives did you see in this album?
Some of it got kind of a little bit repetitive, which I mean I know I tend to say that. That's a big complaint I have with most of the music and stuff anymore. But I mean it's kind of some of the 80s stuff. It's very, very, very 80s.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're a fan of that, that's great. I am. Like I said, some of it, it sounds a little same, a little similar. And this album to me kind of summed up everything that was good and bad about the 80s. You got the solid guitars, the awesome vocals, which I think the 80s had some of the greatest guitars and vocals in the history of music.
I agree.
But it also had like some of your kind of ballad type songs and stuff, and it was almost like cheesy ballads, like the type that's like it's almost like a forced ballad, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
And so to me those were kind of some of the negatives. And honestly, it's not a negative on the album. It's more just kind of the state of how everybody sees Europe. And we talked about it at the beginning. Everybody knows them as the Final Countdown band, and they've been pigeonholed into this spot. And this album is fantastic to be like, hey, no, they actually have really good stuff. Let's ignore the Final Countdown, whether you like it or not. I actually kind of enjoy the song, but it's like, you know what? They have other stuff. Let's not pigeonhole them into this. And I think that was, kind of one of the bad, sad things that happened with this band, just historically speaking.
Yep, I agree. My negatives on this album, it's not a lot. Every song was very solid, even the ballads. I am not a ballad fan, and the ballads on here for me were digestible to listen to. There's a lot of ballads out there that maybe even bands that I kind of like. Like I don't hate Poison like seems like everybody else does, but Every Rose Has Its Thorns, like one of the worst songs ever in my opinion. I can't stand that crap. But the ballads on here are more, I don't know. It's kind of hard to explain. They're not sappy, slow ballads, I guess you could say. But the only thing I have is that it's all great, but there's not enough of it that's really memorable. We touched on a few songs, but overall, some of these songs, they just kind of start blending together, not, in my opinion, not because they're the same sounding, but just because there's nothing that specifically stands out. Like, later on in some of their albums, they would have like a key riff that I would remember or something like that. And in this album, while there were good riffs and it was all solid, there wasn't anything that just stood out and grabbed me and made me want to go back and listen to it immediately over again. So, I think we pretty much covered most of the album. Before we get to the rating, you got anything else you want to add?
No, I think, you summed it up pretty good there. Like I said, whenever I said a little bit repetitive, it was kind of what you were talking about. It's just, it kind of blends together a little bit. So, I completely agree with that.
So on the Vault rating, 1 star being the worst, 5 stars being the best, what do you give this album?
I'm going to give it a good solid 3.5.
Interesting. That's the exact same score I had. So perfect.
That works out good then.
Nothing else to say. That pretty much sums it up, guys. This
Yeah.
album is great. It's kind of the epitome, I guess, or sums up, whichever word you want to use, early original 80s, or not even 80s, original metal. You know, not the hair bands, not thrash, not death metal, just straight up heavy metal that really started coming out in the early 80s. And I think this is also kind of a crossover, maybe. Like I could see some fans of pop music kind of getting into this because it's the vocals are very powerful in that aspect, in that realm. Of course, you got the metal. I could see kind of the casual rock fans listening to this. I mean, I think there's something in here for pretty much everybody, unless you like rap. Obviously, you're not going to get that in this. So, yeah, that's all I got to say. I think 3.5. This is an album you should definitely check out. If you can find it on sale somewhere, please buy it. Please keep buying music too. Don't download it, and please don't pay to download. If you're going to spend your hard-earned money, at least buy a physical copy of something. Sorry, I just rant on that. But anything else before we go?
No, I'm good. Be sure to check it out. It's very good early 80s metal. And if you're a fan of solid guitars and vocals, it's definitely something to check out.
All right, and with that, we're going to sign off. Thanks for listening. You can send us anything you want to send us, complaints, comments, send us something you want us to review. You can hit us up on Twitter at TheVaultMusic1, Facebook.com/TheVaultRVWS, and you can check us out on YouTube and Podomatic. With that, we'll see you later.
Peace.